Good afternoon and welcome to the inaugural 2024 Public Works Committee meeting. On my left, I have Vice Chair Barbara Burke. Also with us is Councilmember John Larson and Councilmember Annette Scipio, and in attendance also is Councilmember Kevin Mundy. Just visiting. Okay. Council members, are there any items on the consent agenda that we would like to pull to discuss?
Just C1 for comment.
C1 for comment. Could I have a motion to approve the balance?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Oh, go ahead. It was Larson and Scipio, correct? Councilmember Larson, Councilmember Scipio.
Motion second.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you very much. Could we have consent item C1, please? Mr. Reed.
Item C1, resolution approving the Fowle Street Traffic Calming Plan for funding and construction located in the East Ward.
Great. Did you have a question on this or just general information for the public? We
Jennifer.
could get a quick rundown on this, Reed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the proposed plan is a traffic calming project on Fowle Street, located off of Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. The proposed plan calls for 3 speed cushions on Fowle Street. The residents voted late in 2023. They met the 70%, and this plan is in front of you for adoption. The funds are budgeted under the traffic calming program. And this spring, I will hope to issue the work order for the work to be completed.
Great. Any additional questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. Just so everyone remembers that this is the way we can stop people from misbehaving by speeding through our neighborhoods when the speed limit is 25 or 35. Since you don't slow down, we do things to make you slow down. But it's at the request of the residents. So I want to thank my residents on Fowle Street who saw a problem and acted on it by requesting these traffic calming, and that's what citizens must do. If you want to change the traffic, slow it down on your street, you need to contact our traffic department and go through the process. We just don't put them up, but you have to request it. I wish we could have some type of, with AI, we're going to be able to have every car equipped so when they speed, they cut off in our neighborhoods. Because our young people are at risk, our children are at risk, but I am so thankful we have residents who say enough is enough, and so we have speed bumps. Thank you.
Councilmember Larson.
Could you just, for public information, describe the difference between a speed pillow and a speed bump?
Yeah, of course, Councilmember Larson. Okay, so speed cushion is what I typically refer to them as, and they're about a 4x4 asphalt lump almost, and they're designed to make it particularly uncomfortable to go over them very quickly. A difference between that and a speed bump that is contiguous, like we see in commercial developments, those you can kind of go over. They're supposed to be in parking lots. This is for the more residential areas to really cut down on that speeding. Like I said, to make it uncomfortable for those people that are the what I would call like the chronic speeders of the neighborhood that get us to this point.
So are they less impactful for fire engines and police cars, or about the same, or what?
Exactly, yeah. So there's a space in between them, so the wheelbase of a fire truck can kind of glide right over them. That's the intent here. So the impact time or the response time is very minimally impacted.
Excellent, thank you.
Of course.
I move for approval of C1.
Hang on, I do want to say something.
Okay.
So while these are oftentimes effective, they are not a silver bullet. They don't always work, and they do have some negativity around them from people speeding up to them, slowing down, and then taking back off. The bad behavior is the thing that's most difficult to solve, and this solves a lot of it, but not all of it. And let me also say that based on that, we're going to pull back on the number of these that we do, just because the volume that's requested is not manageable. So as your constituents ask you to do these, please let them know it may be quite some time before we are able to actually physically do any work on their project. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I also want to add that while this is a great measure to take to stop the speeding, when the community members make this decision, they are equipped with all of the options as well as the pros and the cons. And one con that comes up over and over is the fact that if these speeding calming measures are put in place, it will prevent their streets from being shoveled if there's snow or plowed. So that is something to always consider. Thank you. And thank you for all that you do.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Ready? I move for approval of C1.
Second.
Motion properly seconded. That is unanimous. Now, let's go to our general agenda, and City Clerk, item G1.
Item G1, information on Bridge Pair Replacement Project B5950, located in the Southwest Ward.
Great. So even though this is not a city project, this is something that is, the magnitude of it is something that we feel like we need to inform council members and the general public on. It is not quite the magnitude of the Business 40 Salem Parkway shutdown, but this will affect a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. So we want to get this out in front of council members for questions and see what input we can have in the process to make things as palatable to the public as possible. Speaking to us today, Ryan Newcomb, who unfortunately got away from us a couple of years ago. We were glad to see him back and look forward to his presentation.
Thank you, Councilmember McIntosh. Appreciate that. So yes, I'm Ryan Newcomb. I'm Division 9 Project Engineer with NCDOT Division 9 here in our Winston-Salem office. I'm joined today by our Division 9 engineer, Mr. Pat Ivey, along with our Division 9 Project Development Engineer, Matt Jones. When Mr. King suggested that we bring this to the committee, Pat said yes, he thought it was a very good idea for me to give this presentation today. So thank you for that. So we're going to talk today about the B5950 project. That's a STIP project to replace the dual bridges on Silas Creek Parkway over Salem Creek. There are two separate bridges there today. The westbound direction is carried by a bridge that was constructed in 1955. The eastbound direction structure was constructed in 1968 when Silas Creek Parkway, also known as NC 67, was widened. So these bridges are up for replacement. They were first identified in 2017, and the project is now programmed for delivery in the state's Transportation Improvement Program. The plan now is to replace the two separate structures with a single bridge in their place. We've been working as part of our preliminary design work with Mr. Fansler and the Winston-Salem DOT staff. And we can confidently say that we can design the replacement structure with a height that will accommodate the future extension of the Salem Creek Greenway, which was very important for the city, we know. Currently, the project is programmed to start right-of-way acquisition in January of 2026 and let for construction in 2027. And so as Councilmember McIntosh mentioned, we are here today to continue our long-standing partnership with the City of Winston-Salem on project delivery and trying to get in front of potential traffic impacts. As you all are aware, Silas Creek Parkway carries an average of almost 25,000 vehicles per day in 2023 volumes. So we took the current traffic conditions and forecasted them out to 2027. To look at traffic conditions in a no-build situation. So the graphic before you shows level of service values using 2027 volumes. And if you travel this section of roads in Winston-Salem, you probably are familiar with some of the values you see. Relatively speaking, the intersections function well, but there's obviously a delay during peak periods. Some of the challenges that we face when looking at replacing these structures is the geometry of the roadway coming in and out of the project site. There are horizontal and vertical curves on both sides that present challenges. And there's a lot of commercial activity within the proximity of the bridges. And so our goal here is to minimize right-of-way impacts to those businesses. And then also there are a lot of utilities. There are 3 large Duke transmission lines that run overhead of the structures that present some unique challenges with respect to utility conflicts. So the division first took a look at potentially staging construction of the bridge replacements. And so what we would do here is put traffic onto one of the bridges while we constructed a portion of the new structure. And so what we could do would be either reduce Silas Creek Parkway to 1 lane in each direction, and then we also looked at detouring 1 single direction. So some of the things we saw when we looked at this is that particularly when you close the westbound direction and then try to detour it back in, tying that into the Lockland Avenue intersection becomes almost physically impossible. We also saw in our modeling some extensive queuing of traffic. It's a little hard to see here, but this shows, I believe, the AM peak hour detouring 1 direction, and traffic backs up all the way from Lockland through the Peters Creek Parkway intersection almost to Buchanan Street. The other thing that we find here is that to construct the bridge this way would take more than likely 2.5+ years of construction. So we shifted away from the 1 lane each direction and then began to look at detouring potentially just 1 direction. So you could flip eastbound or westbound, maintain 2 lanes in each direction, but then detour the other direction. And what we find is that the pain, so to speak, is very similar to when you try to put Silas Creek Parkway into 1 lane in each direction. You see some similar level of service values. Your delay times and travel time impacts are roughly the same. And you're still stuck with a construction duration that's 2.5+ years. So just to summarize what we're seeing in the stage construction, we have poor level of service within the project impact area. Obviously, when you've shifted traffic into these combinations, it will limit access to the businesses within proximity to the project. The driveways are so close, it would be very difficult to maintain all of those access points when putting traffic in this configuration. And because of the separation that would be required between the existing structure that's carrying traffic and the portion of the new one that we're building, we'd be looking at wider right-of-way impacts and then subsequently more utility impacts. And again, we're looking at 2.5+ years of construction. So we asked the big question, and drawing off of our experience that we all shared during the Salem Parkway project, the Business 40, we asked, well, what would happen if we closed Silas Creek Parkway to replace the bridges? We would sign a primary detour route that would utilize Peters Creek Parkway, I-40, and Haynes Mall Boulevard. We could accommodate access to the commercial entities up to the project limits on both the east and west ends. And probably most importantly, we could reduce the construction time during the full closure to approximately 1 year with contractual incentives. And we talked to some contractors in the area who are actively working for us and have done a lot of these projects for us, and they agreed that a 1-year time frame with a complete closure would be certainly doable. But as you can imagine, that's pretty painful when you do that. So you see a lot more red on this graphic than you've seen in the previous ones. But what we did here is we assumed that all of that 25,000 vehicles per day would use the primary assigned detour route. So what we tried to model here and what we're showing you is a worst case scenario. And what we learned, I think, during the Salem Parkway project is that people find a way, right? Local traffic is going to utilize alternative routes. But for the purpose of our analysis, we felt it important to try to see what we can do with all of that traffic. So we had our Dewberry team go and look at mitigation measures. What are some things that we can do within this impact area to try to mitigate the impact of the full closure? And that's what you see before you. This is our first pass at potential mitigation measures. And there's simple things that can be done: signal timing adjustments along the corridors, restriping existing lanes and changing signal phasing at some key intersections to try to utilize as much of the pavement that's there today as possible to try to handle these, some of these turning movements get turned upside down with the additional traffic. And so trying to mitigate that as best we can. And what we found is we can get the intersection level of service, we can get the delays, roughly to the same level we would see in those stage construction scenarios. And so, but we can do it faster. So it'll be painful, yes, but we can get it done in half or better of the time. And we feel like there may be more things we can do. This was, again, a first pass at looking at mitigation measures. As we get further into the design with Dewberry, we'll continue to look at what can be done. And the way we would contract this is that these mitigation measures would be part of the construction contract and would be implemented prior to the closure. So here's some comparisons. So on the left, you'll see what the 2027 numbers look like in the no-build situation. And beside it is the alternative 3, that full closure with all of the mitigation measures in place. And here's a comparison between detouring that eastbound direction and the full closure. And that's where you can see we're able to achieve comparable level of service and delay impacts. And here's that westbound detour. So some next steps, what we envision, it's January of 2024, so we're a long ways away from that right-of-way date. But we started planning this project early due to the fact that we knew this was going to be a challenge. So Dewberry is going to proceed with that full closure for the design. Again, we can match roughly the existing footprint of the 2 individual structures. So we're going to proceed with that design. Probably the next big ticket for us is trying to identify the utility conflicts, particularly the impacts from the transmission line. And where that has an impact on us is more around constructability, the ability to get equipment underneath those lines and clear them in order to build the bridge. And the other really important component is public outreach. So our vision at this point is some targeted meetings with the businesses within the project area. We want to meet one-on-one with those businesses and talk about access to them during the closure. What can the department do as part of the project to help allow, we want the public to know they can still access those businesses, that they'll still be open, and try to get out in front of some of those questions. And we also want to meet with some of the institutions that are within the impact area. Forsyth Tech obviously stands to be impacted by what we're proposing. Obviously, Novant Forsyth Medical Center. We've also been talking with Mr. Fansler and Winston-Salem DOT about the Wista route that runs on Siles Creek Parkway and trying to figure out how we can accommodate that during the closure. So trying to do that outreach early and find out what concerns these institutions may have and how we can try to address that. And then we want to develop an expanded outreach to prepare the public for this. We kind of talked with the Dewberry team about Business 40 Light, so it wouldn't be as intense of a public outreach campaign as far as the voting and those kind of things that we saw during the Salem Parkway project. But we do want to develop a plan to get the news out to the public. I live in Ardmore, so this is my route to and from the division office every day. So I'm already thinking about how I will get to and from work every day in this situation. But trying to spread that word to the public to let them know that this is coming and to plan accordingly and to seek alternative routes. As we progress with the design, we're also going to try to coordinate with the city sidewalk project EB 5722. So that's going to construct a sidewalk along Siles Creek Parkway, but the city's project actually ends at Lockland Avenue. There would be a potential for a sidewalk gap between what the bridge project will put in, and so we've been working with Mr. King and Mr. Fansler on a potential solution there to try to incorporate the closure of that gap into the bridge project. And just lastly there, a reminder, so our current program is right away of January 2026. With a let date of January 2027, but understand, those dates are always subject to change as funding continues to be an issue with rising costs within the STIP statewide. But for now, those are the program dates, and we certainly will keep you abreast if they change. And so that's all I had, and be more than happy to take any questions, try to answer what we can. If we don't have the information today, we'll certainly try to get it back to you. But
Great. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Questions from committee members? Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, just to be clear, our roads are so well constructed, there's oftentimes you don't notice there's bridge. So I was sitting here trying to figure out exactly where on Siles Creek. And the only thing I could think of is down near Bob King Auto.
That's correct.
And Quality Oil.
Yes.
That's about where that is.
Yes, ma'am.
But to replace that bridge, it looks like you're having to go all the way up. Are you going to go beyond Ebert Street?
No. So our project limits will probably be, we will stop short of the Laughlin Avenue intersection. And our goal at this point, you mentioned the Quality Oil site. There's a Shell gas station that sits out in front of Quality Oil's facility there. Our goal would be to try to tie Siles Creek Parkway back in before we get to the gas station. Obviously, their tanks and facilities sit very close to the existing roadway. So we would like to avoid any impacts to their site if at all possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Mundy?
I want to make sure that committee members have had an opportunity. I don't think we've met, but I'm Kevin Mundy. I'm council member for the Southwest Ward. So I've got a couple of questions. One was where you would start and stop that you've just answered. At what point would you address the businesses? Because I always worry about them hearing it from somebody other than us.
Yeah, sure. So that probably is the next item on the agenda after we present to you today. So I have a call with my Dewberry team tomorrow, actually. So we wanted to give this presentation today, and then I'm going to circle up with them and try to figure out a timeline to make those initial contacts with the businesses.
Then also, this is a proactive measure, is that correct? A proactive measure to replace the bridge, or have there been any, is there any worry about the condition of that bridge until you start construction?
No, you've probably noticed some people have hit the railing, particularly in the westbound direction. We've had to make a couple of repairs to the structure, but there's no imminent danger, certainly. That's why the programming date 2027, we don't have any concerns with the structural integrity.
And this is, if we divert people off of a state road, they're going to end up on city roads, which are not designed to accommodate as much traffic. So what help might we expect from the state in that area?
So I think that's something we certainly want to look at. I know Mr. King mentioned some potential, measures we can try to take, looking at the city's capital plan resurfacing program, those kind of things. I think, what we would want to see is mitigation measures that we can do, particularly those intersections. And those will be a part of the bridge project. So if any of those touch a city street, we would certainly implement those, for the cost of the project from the department. We wouldn't expect the city to bear that burden, certainly. So that's where I would see some assistance, from the project standpoint, would be implementing those mitigation measures to try to minimize that impact to the surrounding area.
And then I would hope afterwards, when we see what the impact is, that we might be able to depend on the state to help us get those streets back in good condition.
Well, and I certainly think, too, when we think about signal timing and implementation during construction, once we see the closure and we see how this, that's sort of a moving target. And so we would, certainly work with Winston-Salem DOT staff to make sure we're on top of, how the patterns are changing during the closure and try to make sure that we provide the support necessary to keep that moving. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Scipio.
Is it too simplistic to think that you could just divert the traffic along Link Road as the detour?
So the challenge there is the intersection with Link Road at Laughlin Avenue. So it's a stop condition, and it is very close to the Siles Creek Parkway signalized intersection.
Right.
So if Link Road went directly from Peters Creek Parkway to Siles Creek Parkway, it would be a potential. But that still would be a lot of traffic to try to put onto that, surface street. So, that's why we would want to utilize the state routes 150, I-40, and Haynesmall Boulevard to get people, around the work area. Now, certainly, local traffic is going to know that Link Avenue is an option. I think in part of our initial conversation with Mr. Fansler, that's a potential diversion for the Wista route to minimize, how long they have to take to get around the closure and to try to maintain, their service to the institutions along Siles Creek Parkway. But I don't believe it's something we would want to sign as the official route, given its limited capacity.
I just want to share that when Salem Parkway was closed and people were routed down 5th Street to come to Winston, people also found the advantage of going down 3rd Street.
Right.
And neighborhood streets weren't in the best condition before that, and it was worse after. So if we're going to close any streets, and there are going to be some logical neighborhood detours, I would hope our DOT department take care of those roads before the closure, so that they don't get in worse shape after the closure. Because some of us will always find a little shortcut. And so I think that will happen.
Councilmember Mundy.
And to that point, once we know where we think we know where the traffic will be going, could we also have a meeting with those residents to let them know in advance and give them an opportunity to tell you why you shouldn't do it, but we have to do it?
Yeah, I think that's, that's part of what we're going to try to develop from this point going forward is public outreach. And so I think that, we certainly can look at particularly something in my neighborhood, your ward, the Ardmore residents who probably utilize South Street Parkway pretty frequently. Certainly I think that can be a component of it, is we can do some outreach to let the public know this is coming. Yeah.
And even if it doesn't affect their route, it's going to affect the amount of traffic in front of their houses. And Ardmore, as you probably know, is one of our biggest complainers, if you will, for speeding and kids in the road and it being unsafe. So we're just exacerbating that problem. So if we can get in front of that with the residents as well as the businesses, I think that'd be the best thing.
Okay.
I want to start out by saying thank you to Pat Ivy and your crowd. I know from having worked with you all on the TAC and then through the Business 40 Salem Creek project, the thoroughness of what you guys go through and then the decision-making that goes on before you even get to this stage, much less reach out to the public and take that stuff into account. I do think that the Salem Creek project did go a long way to building trust of the public in your organization and how you do things. I think that was just an absolute success, and I think that's going to make the acceptance of this by the public a much easier thing. Nothing's going to be easy, but I think it will help quite a bit. The decision to go with a full shutdown versus partial is strictly up to NCDOT. I mean, with input from us, but its final decision is made by NCDOT.
It would be, yes.
Okay. I do want to just ask one question just for clarification. On your report, you kept showing LOS, level of service. Give us just a quick rundown of what level of service means.
So generally graded A through F. So level of service A means, free flow condition, no delay. Level of service F, as bad as it can get.
4th Street at 5 o'clock? 4th
Street at 5
o'clock?
I don't go downtown at 5 o'clock, so there you go. Some of the volumes we see at Peters Creek Parkway and South Creek Parkway around 5 o'clock would probably be level of service D. Generally what you see. And within an intersection level of service, too, individual movements can be at a worse grade.
Right.
For instance, you saw in some of those diagrams, you'll see some movements do get to an F. And a lot of that's because of the volumes that are trying to make a particular movement and trying to factor that into the operation of the intersection at large. So what we're trying to do is get those delays and level of service values to be comparable, and we're able to achieve that with those mitigation measures between the full and the stage construction.
Great. At the beginning of the Business 40 Salem Creek shutdown, there were some issues with trucks not getting the message that the routing had changed, and I think that kind of comes down to Google and Waze and Apple having the information. I think it eventually got to the point where they picked up on that. Is there a way that we can do any outreach to those services to make sure that that's done, that information's in their system prior or early on?
Yeah, I don't know offhand how we could do that, but that would certainly be a component of what we would try to achieve. I think that's a worthwhile goal. Certainly something we can look into.
Great. Councilmember Larson.
Google Maps would be a good place to start.
Yeah.
My real question is there a bottleneck anywhere where we go from, everything is 2-lane in all the approaches and all the exits out of this area. Do you have a place where it goes down to 1 lane? The ramp something specifically, whether you're ramping it.
Yeah, some of the pinch points that we see, and I'll go to the diagram. Where we see some of our biggest issues, Haynes Mall Boulevard and the I-40 East ramp. We're just limited in the northbound direction on Haynes Mall Boulevard. We're physically constrained. That right turn lane is very short. And there are 2 full lanes on that on-ramp, but they are brutally underutilized. You'll notice in the southbound direction at Haynes Mall Boulevard, everyone stacks into that right turn, the outside of the left turn lanes, even though both lanes go all the way onto the main line on 40. So that's one of the pinch points we see. Even though we have capacity there, traffic just doesn't utilize it well. And then obviously there's only so much you can do at the off-ramp from I-40 at Peters Creek Parkway. It's another location where we're physically constrained. We have 2 left turn lanes and the single right turn lane. So one of the mitigation measures that we're looking at is restriping that center lane to be a left and a right, which would give you some more right turn capacity at that location. But again, we're just physically constrained due to the water feature that's just off of the off ramp there.
I understand why we can't use Link Road because it is a 2-lane road, but I'm also a little concerned about backing traffic up onto I-40 as we feed it onto I-40 for that section and trying to get on the off ramps and on ramps. The problem we may have. I know it's going to be difficult, and I should know you're going to have to start constricting traffic, further out.
Right.
Give people time to adjust to it because it's going to be like a traffic jam there. As you know, the traffic there at 4 o'clock is horrendous anyway.
Yep. So in our modeling of the mitigation measures, we are stacking on that ramp, and but we didn't get back to the main line on 40. And so again, we're assuming all of that Silas Creek Parkway traffic is going to be on that detour route. And so the hope would be obviously that local traffic would choose an alternative and not use the primary route in the end.
Eventually, won't they?
Yeah.
Councilmember Mundy.
I can't tell from the map here, is it Old Salisbury Ridge where the bridge is being constructed?
Old Salisbury Road?
Old Salisbury Road that goes into Washington Park? It goes over.
Salisbury Ridge.
Salisbury
It goes
Ridge
over
Road.
Peters Creek Parkway.
Will that be accessible?
Certainly, yeah. That bridge should be open within the next few months.
But I mean, the closing, where exactly will you close?
So
That Shell station? Right at that Shell.
Yeah, so it would be closed at Peters Creek Parkway, allowing local traffic only. So the hard stop would be, probably at Salisbury Ridge Road, again, allowing local traffic to access Quality Oil, Bob King Hyundai, the laundromat facility on the east side of the closure. But it would be sort of, you'd see those type 3 barricades that say road closed, local traffic only. Those would be at the Peters Creek Parkway intersection. But Salisbury Ridge Road would still be accessible, yes.
Yes, so the more paths we can leave open, the better. So
Right.
I'm glad to hear that.
Which is important for us to have a brand-new bridge over Peters Creek Parkway on that facility. Yep.
Councilmember Scipio.
So where does you close at Peters Creek, down to how far down on Silas Creek is it closed for construction?
So again, we would try to allow local traffic to access the businesses as close to the bridge project as we possibly could. But I don't know that answer today because we haven't gotten far enough into the design to see how, the bridge is going to be a little higher than it is today. Some of that's related to the greenway, some of that's related to hydraulics in the creek. But so we raise the bridge, we've got to tie that roadway back in on both sides. And so it just depends on how far that limit goes and how much we can maintain access before we have to, do some of that tie-in. But those limits aren't defined yet. That's sort of our next step in the design process.
But are you thinking maybe Miller Street?
Oh, no. No, we would, again, so going towards Lockland Avenue, we would tie in prior to that intersection. And then going the other direction, we would tie in, hopefully, by the time you get, to the Bob King Hyundai driveway.
So as we go forward, there'll be more information that you guys will share with us.
Certainly,
like those particular things.
Yeah, as we get more into the details, we can
So
obviously share that
We'll
information.
get links to websites and things so we can direct people as they have questions. If council members and the public, we have this vast viewing audience that's watching today, but so when they have questions, what's their best way to get information, to contact somebody in your office or us, or?
They can certainly contact the division office, and we'll be more than happy to speak with them, give them the information we have. But as we develop a public outreach plan, obviously we'll have a website, we'll have some landing spots for people to come and communicate, provide their input, get information, maps. We'll do all those things. But this was our first step. Before we launched too far into this thing, we wanted to bring this, to the city and make you aware of where we were headed, get some really great feedback on some things to keep in mind as we move forward. So I know my notes at least have been helpful for what we need to do going forward.
We greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for bringing us a fairly high level of information. And, like I say, you guys demonstrated before, this is not a project that's too big for you guys to handle. So let's do this one as well as we did the last one, and everybody will be happy. Well, almost everybody will be happy. Thank you. If there's nothing further, we appreciate it. Stay in touch.
Thanks. All right. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, we're doing some horse trading on ward lines over here. Let's go to item G2, please.
Item G2, update on capital projects.
In front of us now is a soon-to-be retired senior engineer, and I thought we might come up with a list of reasons why you should not leave, but I'm not sure any of them would work. But
I think we'll padlock all the doors that he goes through. We're not going to let him go.
But before you start, let me just say how great it's been to work with you for the last 10 years, my term on council, and I just really appreciate the level of professionalism and transparency that you always bring to something, and so we're going to miss you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and council. It's been about 4 or 5 months, I think, since I did my last update. So just wanted to give you a quick update of some of the things we have finished and some of the projects we have also started since that last update. First of all, wanted to celebrate our successes, the projects we have completed. One of those was the final phase of Cloverdale Avenue. As you can see from the photos, we have greatly increased pedestrian safety out there. I think that project turned out very well. Lakeview Bridge has been completed. Actually got a video from one of the neighbors out there when we were getting all that rain about a week ago. Opposed to the old bridge that was usually underwater, this one was over the water like it should be. The Easton Elementary Mobile Unit has been completed. Bellevue Recreation Center has been completed. The contractor is working on some punch list items out there, so it's not in operation yet, but it will be shortly. Fire station number 3 has been completed. Again, contractors working on punch list items. Once the fire department moves out of the old station and into this new station, we will be tearing down the old station. So you will be seeing work continuing out there. And then on to some projects we are currently working on. Just an update on the Union Station's second floor remodel. After I updated you a few months ago on this one, Winston-Salem State approached us. They've had quite a bit of turnover in their staff. Some of their needs have changed since the original design was made on this. So the architect is currently working on making some small revisions to the plans. It's some stuff of deleting some walls to create some more open space for cubicles and things like that. It's not major changes. Meadowlark Drive widening. Hopefully you've been out there this fall to see that the contractor has made some significant progress on this project. We do have a estimated completion date now of October of '24. We continue to push them to meet that date, and if progress continues like it is, we think they will.
Prior to Election Day.
The concrete street replacement project is complete except for one street, Fairfax Drive. We're starting that this fall, and as we started working underneath the pavement, we found some significant drainage issues that were not expected. Since we were entering in the wet and cold season, we decided to delay the project until this spring when it warms back up. So the contractor agreed just to put it on hold until then, and then they'll be back out there this spring to do that last street. Truist Stadium, as I'm sure you've seen from the highway, is under construction now. The majority of this project is to meet the requirements that Major League Baseball placed on all their stadiums. A lot of that will be done by opening day. Not all the construction will be done by then. Current construction completion date is July on that one. We have a designer under contract, Freeze and Nichols, for the Muddy Creek Greenway repairs. They are currently working on surveying, and we'll be starting the design shortly on that. The design is supposed to be complete in June for that project, and then we will be putting it out to bid, and the construction contract will be coming to you to approve. And then just some short updates. The Washington Park Picnic Shelter, this is the replacement for the one that burned. The contractor has mobilized and fenced off the area, but they are still waiting on some of the materials on that. As you can imagine, those are some specialty products that I think they're coming from out of state. So once they get their materials, they will start construction on that. Petrie Road and Cedar Trails sidewalk projects are currently out to bid. Bid opening is next week. Assuming we get 3 valid bids, we will hopefully bring that to you in February for approval. Little Creek Greenway extension will be going out to bid in February or March. That project's been around a while, so we'll be glad to get it under construction. Martin Luther King Jr. streetscape improvements. We have been meeting with Duke Energy the past couple weeks to try to come up with a plan for them to go ahead and start work on the lighting replacement out there. That's our top priority on that because that is a safety issue out there. First Street Bridge replacement. I believe there's some property acquisition on Finance Committee agenda today. So that's starting the process on that. That's a federally funded project, so there are a lot of steps that we have to go through to get everything approved. So right now we are tentatively looking at the end of the calendar year, hopefully for construction to begin on that. Runnymede Stream Restoration Project. We are working on the contract documents right now with HDR Engineering. They are going to perform the application process for us on that. It's a fairly involved process, so we decided to bring in some experts to handle that for us. And then finally, we have about a dozen federally funded sidewalk projects we're working on. One of them is that Silas Creek Parkway sidewalk project that Ryan mentioned earlier. You should be seeing those coming forward in the next year or so. Different stages for bid and approval. I think that's about it. If you have any questions.
Councilmember Scipio?
Just clarification, that First Street Bridge is First and Hawthorne. That's that one.
That's correct, yes.
With the failing culvert.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Isn't there another First Street Bridge that's going to have to be worked on as well near Northwest?
This is the one over the railroad.
Over the railroad.
Yeah, I know you're thinking the one that Keith has talked to you about before.
The one,
a different one.
The one
That's
in
right.
Hawthorne.
That's right.
That's the wrong one?
That's a different one than the one that Robert's talking to you
So
about.
this one is where?
On the railroad, over the railroad tracks right there.
West Highlands, near where Northwest Boulevard ties into First.
Where those new apartments are, right near there.
Coming down the hill towards the hospital.
Like you just passed the Hardys and you're going like away from town and you're getting ready to go over the railroad tracks,
Heading toward 5 Points.
Yeah, right before.
heading towards 5 Points.
Okay, I'll
Halfway
get
to
it.
top.
I'll get it in.
Trust us.
I'll get it in a minute. First.
Other questions, comments? Councilmember Mundy?
At the risk of opening up a can of worms, because I just haven't heard anything about it, what are our plans for the multi-use path along Salem Parkway? And is that a 100% city project, or is that a state?
So Councilman Mundy, we're not going to give away that one yet, but if you come at 4 o'clock at Finance, Jeff Fansler's going to tell you all you need to know about that one. So we've got a little presentation on there for that item this afternoon.
Teaser.
That's right.
And the Little Creek Parkway, remind me how far that goes when the extension is done.
It will go from where it ends now down to Somerset.
But it will not cross Somerset?
It will not cross
Okay,
Somerset.
thank you.
No.
Okay. Excellent greatest hits projection there. So if there's nothing further, thanks for keeping us up to date, and welcome back anytime to reprise your role.
Thank you.
Not too late.
Thank you.
Next month.
Yes. Thank you for everything. Okay, if there's not anything more for the good of the order, we stand adjourned.
Gosh.